February it'll be 748. In March we'll have it down a month. April it'll start picking back up. May. September it'll go back down. 799, and then November and October will go back up, so. Okay. Now, that's not a normal, unusual pattern, because what 2 months, Christmas season and summer are always more. The only thing that might be a little bit low would be February, because normally January and February dip and then it goes back up and then it dips and then it goes into Christmas and that. So we start doing this. Now what we'll do is we'll sit there and say, we want to predict what our sales are in any type of sort of month. And we sort of want to be able to look at that. And we do a time series data. Now the tricky part gets, what would be our independent variable in time series data? The time. Time would be our independent variable. Our sales would be the dependent variable. So if I'm looking at this, what are some of the first things I have to calculate? Okay, well I need to get my sums, my count, mean, okay, standard deviation. Those are normally what we need to be able to calculate these.
So you said the time is the independent?
Yeah.
And
Now the
sales-
trick is, how do we actually do the time? Because how could I sum and take an average of 12 months? It's a little bit tricky. So how do we do that?
These
Close.
months.
We do it and we use time periods.
Oh, quarter.
So I would sit there and go, this is the first month, second month, third month, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Then I can sum them. Okay? It's kind of hard to sum the months. So I just give each period. Now if I started with January 1st and did the 1st, would I number these the same? If I did this and said 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, and went through, would I number these the same?
No.
What would I start with?
2.
No. I'd actually start with 0. Because see, when I start at the end of the month, on January 31st, I'm 1 month into the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
On January 1st, I am
0.
not started the year yet, so I'm at 0. So a lot of times when you're looking at time data, you got to sort of look at where you start on the calendar. Does that make sense? So if I start on January 1st, we haven't had 1 month yet, have we? So see, you got to sort of pay attention to sometimes how we actually number and look at things. We can't just sit there and say, well, there's 12 months. We got to pay attention. Did we count January yet or not? and then I'm going to just do the same things. And sometimes people do this not for 1 year, but they'll do it over 2 years or over a year and a half. How can I, so now to get my average or my mean, what do? I divide the sum by the count. And I can do all that fancy stuff to get my standard deviations. And I might go ahead and actually do that. What do I do to get my standard deviations? What columns do I need? I need x minus x bar. Then what do I need? Nope. X minus x bar squared. Then what am I going to need? I need to calculate the standard deviation for y, so what 2 columns am I going to need?
B and D.
What's B and B? I don't know.
B and D.
What's B and D?
And the month, the months and the sales.
I've got that right here. X is, remember,
You said X is the
X is the independent variable, which in time series data will always be time. So what other 2 columns do I need to calculate the standard deviation of my sales? Huh? My X, see, this is where coming in. What is X? Which means Y is what? So when I calculate this, how do I calculate? What do I need to calculate? What's the formula for standard deviation?
Use your variance.
What's the symbol for standard deviation?
little sigma.
That, in most cases, that if we're using little sigma, what are we talking about? No.
He said no.
Oh, it's population.
Yeah, Greek letters are always population.
Oh, yeah.
So what's the symbol for standard deviation of a sample? S. And if I'm talking about time data, it's always going to be a sample because I always have, I didn't use previous time, I'm not using later time. So it's going to be a S. So what's my formula for S? Guys, if you don't, you should have these written on your index card where you can look at them and get them just like that. Because you're going to need these every time. Just be able to spit them out.
X minus x bar squared divided by n minus 1.
Close.
The sum.
Sum.
The
Or
sum
the sum
Sum.
of
x minus x bar squared divided by n minus 1.
okay. So that means I need what? So in this particular case, x is just a stand-in variable, right? So what's the variable I'm talking about now?
Y.
What's the variable I'm talking about?
Cells y.
Sales, which is the,
Y.
in this particular case. So in this particular case, I'd want
Y minus
y minus
y bar.
y bar. So what 2 columns do I need to add to my table?
Y minus y bar and y minus y bar squared.
And in all these cases, I'm going to want the sum of every column. What should this column sum up to? X minus X bar, and what should this column, Y minus Y bar, sum up to? 0. Okay? So, what's my formula for this? Where's my X live? Time, which lives in where's my, it lives where? C, 3, 2, whoops. C3 minus what? The mean, which is in what? C17. And I want that to remain constant, so I'm going to put dollar signs around it. I'm just going to go ahead and write these. How do I get X minus X bar squared?
X.
What's that one?
X bar, that number.
What number?
E3.
E3 and squared. Okay. See, I want you to be a little bit more precise because you all keep saying that number, but then when you come back to get it, you're not so identify what it is that you want to use. Okay? Y minus Y bar. What's your question, Imani?
Nothing, it's fine.
It doesn't, I don't know why it's not letting me. After I've entered equals C3 minus C17, it's not letting me, when I click enter, it's just leaving it like that.
Did you put an equal sign in front of it?
Why is my X bar coming out -1?
I can barely see it.
If you can't see, then you guys need to sit farther forward. I'm gonna have to figure something, look at it, because you've evidently done something that I can't. I think I know what you've done, but I gotta figure out how to undo it. Just hit Control Z a bunch of times and then till you start to lose data and then come back. So where does my Y live? Sales, where does it live? Close. Well, D3 minus, which is, I haven't found it yet, but where will it live when it's there?
It'll be
D17. See, I don't have to have the number in there when I'm first typing the formula. Okay? But right now, it will just take it as being a 0, so I get back to 532. And then here I'm just going to say what? H3. And if I want to, I can just write times H3. They give me the same thing. And once I've written all the formulas, I can then drag them down. And now all my sums are there. Except for, as you pointed out, I don't have my mean. So I still have to come in here and do my count. And then I have to do my mean, which is my count. And see, it just corrected them all as soon as I typed the mean in. Okay, so when I type a formula, if I know where something lives, I can type that in and worry about that later. So how do I get my standard deviation of x? So where does that number,
The sum was that y minus y bar squared,
so that lives in where?
I 15.
Close.
Y bar square, no,
I'm working with the x right now.
oh, okay.
So-
Oh, okay.
I'm going to look in column
F16?
F. So I'm gonna take F16 and divide it by what?
N minus
N minus 1, which is?
78 minus 1.
No,
11.
No, 11. There's nothing.
12 minus 1.
12 minus 1.
Because my N is always my count. Most of the time, I'm not going to write count, I'm going to actually write N.
Yeah, I'm using 16 as my point. You're taking the sum of the x minus.
I think you clicked the
x
wrong-
bar.
Now, did we get the formula for standard deviation? Because it's saying 0.
Because it was
So you clicked the
F15.
wrong year.
F15.
It's F15.
F15. It's still gonna give me the wrong answer though.
Why?
You need to square it.
Close.
Oh, rule it.
I need the square root. This is the formula for
Yeah,
My numbers are coming out so wrong.
yeah, variance.
variance. To get the standard deviation, I need the
Square root of that.
square root of that.
Okay, I'll leave that.
So this is variance and this is.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, so we gotta.
So I'm gonna come in here and I'm just going to type in
SQRT.
and since I wrote that now for the 1, I can just drag it over and get the variance for the other one. And why did- oh, it gave me the wrong column. I don't want G, I want I. So dragging it over didn't work.
My numbers are coming off wrong. I don't know why.
Unless you typed, I mean,
Can you like make it just a little larger? Cause I'm really blind.
sit up here at this table.
I'm already comfortable.
It's really hard to make it larger and still be able to,
752.
because normally if I make it larger, then I have to keep running back and forth because I lose my labels.
5799, 1010, 1021.
And if you use different columns than I use, your formulas might be a little bit different. Maybe you type your data in columns A, B, and A and B instead of B and C.
Yeah.
So if you're following the formula, you gotta make sure you've typed everything into the same columns.
I have.
Yeah. Now, if I want a regression line,
Hold on.
Oh, the regression.
because see, we always, now, see, I need this information to get my regression line. So what's my formula to calculate B? Where's my,
B equals summation,
B is equal to,
summation of x minus x bar by multiplied y minus y bar over the summation of x minus x bar squared.
which isn't too bad because I actually have this number. I have the x minus x bar.
There, I got it now.
That is right there. I've got the sum of x minus x bar right there, which is
You need the variance.
143. Do I have my numerator? No, so I need to do what? I need to add a column.
X minus the.
So this is my product of x minus x bar times y minus y bar. So where do I find x minus x bar? E, so it's in column E, so this is going to be equal to E3 times H3. Whoops. E3 times H3. Where are my glasses? Why did it come out with a date?
Standard deviation.
Like,
E3 negative 5.5 times H3. Why? Now, it gave me a date. That's obviously incorrect. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to try it again and say
You're ahead of me.
the date is wrong. See, this is where Excel is trying to outguess me. Okay? So the formula says I should take the number that's in what? E3. So now I'm in row what? E6. So E6 and multiply it by H6. And when I do that, it gave me a number. So for some reason, I have something here that I've asked, that is formatting my box wrong.
Right.
yes.
Because I shouldn't get, when I multiply two numbers, I should not get a date. Other than the fact that every date has a number to it. In Excel, it really doesn't see a date, it sees a numerical code for that date. And for some reason, that's what it thinks I wanted. Sometimes Excel gets guessing. It aggravates me when it does that. I know it's going to aggravate you guys. So what did I do is I dropped down. Don't do it in a block very adjacent to it. Because most likely if I try to do it in a box that's adjacent to it, Excel's going to say, see, if I tried to do this and go E4 times H4, my guess is it's going to, well, actually, Control Z. If I come down here and say, and try to do it with E4 times H4, my guess is it's probably going to give me the date because it's adjacent. And you see that it did. Which is not what I wanted. That's why I dropped down a couple of rows. Which means I'm going to take this one and I'm going to drag it up because it gave me the right answer. And then I'm going to drag it down and it gave me the right format. Don't ask me why all of a sudden Excel thought I wanted a date. I don't know. But Excel will do that from time to time.
I'm lost it.
This is sales.
Huh? Y equals sales. Sales is in what column? D.
Can you
I
click?
have to redo it because it wasn't letting me do it.
Can you click on your standard deviation, please? The number, that one,
Standard
or
deviation
just square root?
is the
Okay.
square root of this sum divided by 12 minus
Yes, 1. Okay.
Yes.
How do we get X bar again?
What's X bar?
I'd like to hear you.
What does it stand for? Mean. How do you what's the formula for a mean? How do you calculate a mean or an average?
Sum divided by
Sum of what? Sum of all the data So if I'm doing it for the time period, it's gonna be the sum of the period, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, divided by 12. If I'm doing it for the sales, I'm gonna add up to 532, 748. I'm just going to keep calculating it. You gotta get in mind, when I say the word mean, it's the average. The formula for the mean, what's the formula for the mean?
I don't know how to get this.
Sum divided by,
Sum of what?
sum of the data divided by the number.
So in this case, it would be the sum of the x divided by the n. If I had sales, if I was, now, see, I didn't use s for the variable for sales, because I don't want this s to get confused with this s.
We're gonna
Okay?
use this.
So you gotta be a little
So
bit
you're gonna
careful,
take-
but if I just sat there and said let s equal sales and t equals time, I would just be talking about t and t
Click
bar,
on
s and
number
s
one.
bar. Don't get hung up because I can
Minus.
use any letter or variable
And then-
that I want.
Your mean for x
1 minus the mean,
minus,
You're just taking the y,
C4
minus this,
that's it.
and then in order for you to keep this,
Oh, I get it, okay.
and then now you're gonna put your dollar signs in the B and the.
for the other picture.
Either that or just type the mean and don't type on the box.
So why is my standard deviation coming out different if all my numbers are the
I
same?
have it right.
It's coming out different from yours.
How, did you
I
take,
think because you have different columns than him.
No.
Oh, okay.
Did you
I'm-
square root it?
I hit
So
square
let me
root.
double check.
Is it the SQRT?
It was.
Yeah.
And then
You have to put the parentheses and then.
I got that.
Number,
Okay.
And then
So
so
it's-
to the last one.
Yes, and C4 is 1 divided by, oh no, so minus C19.
so let me see, 9465,
And then it creates it for that one.
9465.
And then you do it for each one. So if I to do each one, you put the monies around that C and put it down. That's what I wasn't getting, okay.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to use
Again, what do you divide by n minus 1? And this is where you gotta be careful. N minus 1 is a number.
oh, so just put the number in.
No.
No.
So here's where she's coming up. She took, and she wrote the formula, she said, equals square root,
I know what I did.
parentheses, and then she identified the box here, which had the, what's the name of the box that had the sum of the,
Mine's is different from yours.
no, the sum is the right answer. I'm gonna show you why you got it wrong. It's because of how you're typing it.
143.
What,
Well,
the
you want the-
number, I want the box that you put it in.
F16.
F16, which is the sum of the x minus x bar column. Okay? F16 is the x minus x bar squared. It's the sum of this. F16 is that sum.
Mm-hmm.
And then she wrote this. And she said divided by B17. And B17 is the count, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when she's typing this, it looks like this because we don't type on two lines. So it looks like this. F16 divided by B17 minus 1. What this is doing, because of order of operations, says to do divisions first.
Oh.
So it's doing this division and then subtracting 1. Where you want to divide by 11, so if you're going to write it that way, that also has to be in parentheses so that it subtracts the 1 from the 12 and then divides.
Got it.
That's why sometimes you're just better off to type in the 11. See, you tried to get fancy. And if you looked at my formula, I just typed in 11. I didn't type B17 minus 1. So that's why your number's coming up slightly different.
Can I see your number now?
Where'd it go?
Jeez.
I know, right? It's like a hot mess.
Where'd it go? I thought
Next to the next one, right there.
Yep, that one.
I got it.
Okay,
Can you
Alrighty.
click on column K, line 3? Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, never mind. How did you get that?
I took this number,
Yeah.
x minus, see, what does this say? It says take the number x minus x bar, which lives in column E, and multiply it by what lives in y minus y bar. So you guys gotta get used to reading some of the language, because it's just multiplying two numbers. This is not, it's not a binomial times a binomial. I'm labeling the numbers. This is why writing things out and labeling things and calling them by the correct names is critical. And did I ever sum that column?
No, you did not.
So 0.6 would push it to 1 and don't forget.
Okay. So what's my formula? So my formula for B is what? The summation of,
X minus X bar squared.
no,
Times
Oh,
y minus
Oh,
y
no
bar
way.
divided by the summation of x minus x bar squared. So when I go there, that's why I needed this column. Because that's my numerator. So there's my numerator, 60415.
And this is to find B. And B.
This is what you should have been doing in study group and what you were supposed to do for your homework. And then I want the so here's my next column that I need. And I need the sum of that column, which is
143.
143. And that's my B. What is the B? Whoops, I didn't actually do that. So my B, I'm just going to take those numbers, 60415, and divide it by 143, which gives me 42.24. What does that represent? What is B? B is the,
You need to find the y cap.
no, B is the slope. What does that mean?
It's increased.
What this means is for each additional, what is my independent variable? Time, and I'm doing it by periods, the first period, second period, third period, right? So I'm going to say for each additional time period, I expect sales to increase what? $42,243.80. That's what that means. Each additional period, I would expect my sales to increase Now, why did I write 42,240? Well, actually, it should, there's my dyslexia coming in. It should be 8.3, not 3.8. Whoops.
Can you go back to the front of the other page?
What other page?
The one where you wrote.
What?
The formula.
You guys have these formulas. If you don't have them and they're not printed out, I put them on La Lima. They're in the book. I don't expect to have to rewrite them on the board every time. You guys need to start bringing these in. Okay, I know that sounds a little bit cruel, but I keep repeating these. But if I have to keep repeating them, you have to learn
It's not
them.
repeating them, I'm trying to write it down so that I can see where the values are and what you're doing. That's why I'm asking you that. So I have 143, I have 6041, but I'm trying to see what
So
it
you
looks
should have
like.
the card that has this formula in front of you.
I do have that, and it's right here.
Then why do I have to keep going
Because
back?
I
and
just
forth?
wanna see that I'm doing it correctly, that's why.
And most of the time, I'm not going to I've got to look at this, and I'm just going to click on the boxes. See, right there it is. I'm not going to type in, I'm going to write down the formula, but then I'm just going to click on the boxes. Where do I find those sums? That was the whole reason to have you go through and do that whole list of sums the other night. Is just being able to look up and find them. Look at the bottom row with those sums. You gotta, when I write these, you gotta learn where to go to look.
Standard deviation X.
What's the formula for A?
The mean minus the b times the x.
What,
For the mean
the-
of x.
what do you mean the mean?
Why do I?
The
The Y
mean
bar.
of the, and in this case, what is Y bar?
Sales.
The sales. So it's the mean of the, see, you guys, that's what you you gotta get used to thinking about what do the symbols represent, and not just thinking about symbols. So, the mean of the sales minus the B, or the slope of the regression line, times the
Mean of this time.
mean of the time period is your A.
Y-intercept.
Okay? And in this particular case, it's the y-intercept. So now I have to sort of look at that. Where does this number live? Where does y bar live?
D17.
D17. Where does B now live?
D17.
B lives in where?
See that? G17.
G17. Where does X bar live?